Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kieran, of course, from Red Devil Weekly. And for the first time in a while, we are doing a live stream, a live match preview for United's game against Wolves. 3 o'clock kickoff, which I cannot remember the last time we had a 3 o'clock kickoff. I think the last time we played on Saturday was against Everton about a month ago now. So, yeah, Europa League and other midweek fixtures hasn't really allowed us to play on Saturday, especially at 3 o'clock. But we are back in the kind of usual Premier League slot on a Saturday. And we're facing Wolves. And it's going to be a very, very interesting game indeed. And these last 4 games really are cup finals for us. 9 points from those 4 games would help us secure top 4 mathematically. But obviously, we've got 4 games to do it, so it can go down to the final day of the season, which, I'll be honest with you, is not something I want to happen. I just don't think I could take it. We've had it a few times where we've needed to nick top 4 the last day of the season, and it's stressful. It's stressful to say the least, so hopefully we can get the job done, starting with a win at home against Wolves. And we'll go straight into it. Wolves, as I said, 13th in the league. Their last 6, actually, their upturn in form, 4 wins from their last 6, has really helped them secure 40 points. Some decent wins in there. Wins against Aston Villa. I think wins against Chelsea. And they've beaten some decent teams this season, even though they have had overall... before this point, they were, staring down the barrel, especially before Lopitegui came in. They were rock bottom of the Premier League. So he's done a fantastic job getting them up to 40 points with 3 games to spare. I think Wolves fans will be overjoyed with the outcome. As I said, wins against Villa, wins against Crystal Palace, Brentford and Chelsea in their last 6 games. So listen, these guys are no mugs. The thing with Wolves, I will say, is that they do seem like a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team, because whilst they've beaten those 4 sides, which are decent sides on paper, they then, end that 6 games, those last 6 games, with a 2-1 defeat to Leicester, who look likely candidates to go down, and a 6-0 defeat to Brighton, where they were about, 4-5-0 down at half-time. So, incredible, really, the way that Wolves, whilst they have been somewhat consistent, they've then, produced some really poor performances. I mean, I know Brighton in that game were absolutely fantastic, and they just seemed to score every chance they had. I think it's good for us that whilst they can be a force to be reckoned with, and we've seen that over the years when we played Wolves, it's always been a really tough, frustrating game. But they can also produce a pretty poor performance, and a performance which, leave Wolves fans shaking their heads, thinking, why can you do it against Chelsea 1 minute or against Brentford 1 minute and then lose 6-0 the next week? So, but that's why they're not higher up the table, but they won't care. They are safe in the Premier League for next season. And credit to Lopitegui. When he was with Sevilla, I thought he did a decent job. And he seems to have been a very good candidate for this Wolves side, who you think, with a bit more investment in the summer, will become a further mainstay in this Premier League. I do think that with some of the players they've got, the likes of Ruben Neves, obviously Cunha as well up front, they've got some high quality players in there who in previous seasons were fighting for top 6 in the league. So, they're not slouches, and I think with the right coach, and it looks like Lopetegui is the right man to take them forward, I think we will be seeing them higher up the table. Top half, I'd say. If I had to predict it next season, I reckon Wolves finish top half. But in terms of this game today, obviously last season the fixture played out. It was a 1-0 win to Wolves, a 1-0 defeat for Manchester United. In a very frustrating game, to be honest with you. We didn't really take any of opportunities. We didn't create a huge amount of opportunities either. But Wolves ended up nicking it. And that would be a devastating result if that were to happen. A devastating result for our top 4 hopes, but just a devastating result if it is another 1-0 defeat. 3 1-0 defeats in a row, and not scoring in our last 3 games. I think the last game we scored in was Aston Villa, and that was only 1-0, and that was a kind of deflected goal. So we really are struggling in the goals department, which actually brings me on to Erik Ten Hag's press conference, which, talking of Jekyll and Hyde, the good news and bad news, ladies and gentlemen. The good news is Rafael Varane is back in contention to start, which is really good that he's going to be back in for the run-in, especially when you look at not just the league season, but the FA Cup final. We need any sort of semblance of our strongest defence for that game, because if we don't, I'm fearing it could be another cricket score. So you look at it, and Varane coming back is a real big positive. It's great that he's recovered. I think a lot of people thought we weren't going to see him for the end of the season, but he has come back, which is good. The bad news, of course, is that Erik Ten Hag labelled Marcus Rashford as a major question mark. A major question mark going into the game tomorrow. Now, I'm not going to pretend and say Rashford's been amazing in the last few games, because he hasn't. I think in the West Ham game, he didn't pull up any trees whatsoever. He was taking the ball far too deep for my liking. He wasn't really getting behind, which maybe is a bit of a tactical genius play by David Moyes. And his teams do generally sit deep. So in some ways I wasn't too surprised. But yeah, Rashford hasn't been at his clinical best that we've seen this season in the last few games. But he is an X-Factor player. And I feel like at this point in the season, kind of how Liverpool are doing it right now, you don't necessarily need to play unbelievably well for 90 minutes, although that would be brilliant. You just need your X-Factor players to step up and produce a moment of quality. And that is seemingly what we're seeing with Liverpool, with the likes of Salah, obviously Gakpo doing his thing. Liverpool, Diaz obviously coming back into the squad is a big thing for Liverpool as well. Their X-Factor players are stepping up right now. And whilst they're not playing amazing football, they're getting the results, they're grinding them out. And with Rashford out, I think that is a huge, huge blow, because he is an X-Factor player. He's someone who, can produce a moment of quality, whether it's a goal, whether it's an assist, and just terrify defences. But he does remove a lot of our threat in behind tomorrow, and it's unfortunate that that is the case. Although we did beat Nottingham Forest on the road without Marcus Rashford, and actually Martial, Anthony, and Sancho played fairly well together, so hopefully more of the same tomorrow. But yeah, a Jekyll and Hyde press conference really from Ten Hag. Rashford potentially being out of the game is a big blow, but Varane coming back is a big positive, not just for this game but the rest of the season. A few comments coming in. Thanks for joining. Matthew's joined us, appreciate it. He says, just win home games, easy. Well, easier said than done, I reckon, especially that last game of the season. I think if we win the Wolves game, I think we'll beat Chelsea, but it's more home to Fulham. They can be tricky customers, especially on the last day of the season. We might be looking at Southampton to do us a favour, which isn't looking likely at the moment. Box, thanks for joining. He goes with 1-0 United as his prediction. I think that's a fair prediction. Matthew says the same. It would follow suit. It would follow the trend of what happened against Aston Villa and what's been happening on our last 3 or 4 games. 1-0 wins or 1-0 losses. So in some ways is encouraging, but some ways not encouraging, in that going forward it's not the slightest bit encouraging. But defensively, we're actually looking pretty solid, even with Shaw and Lindelof. I think they've actually done a pretty decent job. Against Brighton, we shouldn't have conceded, giving away a stupid penalty, and then obviously the West Ham goal that we conceded, you can't really legislate for that. So I think, to be fair to Shaw and Lindelof, they have done a fairly decent job. Really, we should be looking at 2 more clean sheets, and De Gea really should be out of sight in the Golden Glove race when you think about it. But that would be an absolutely stunning stat if David De Gea wins the Golden Glove this season. That'd be unbelievable. Man says the best thing about Varane coming back is we can move Shaw to left back. Yeah, I think that is a big thing in terms of just the balance. And I think also Shaw this season has had a fairly strong season on that side. I know that he's usually much better when he's got Marcus Rashford ahead of him, because he's someone that likes to provide that overlapping run, and he also has just a very good understanding with Rashford down that left-hand side. So unfortunately, if Rashford is out, that is going to be a blow. But I think Shaw, one thing we have missed from him, especially with him being a centre-back, is his delivery into the box. He's someone who has a really underrated left foot in terms of putting it on a plate. And we've seen it from set pieces this season. He's put in some really good crosses that have led to important goals. Namely the Carabao Cup final, the goal away at Chelsea. So he's someone who, not just defensively, but going forward, he really does provide us with that extra weapon of a cross into the box. Who's going to head it? I don't know, especially if, Rashford's not available. Martial, not great in the air. Weghorst, really not great in the air. So it's going to be interesting to see who would get on the end of those crosses. But nevertheless, I think Luke Shaw going forward is actually an underrated weapon for us. Niall says 3-1 United. Thanks for joining, Niall. Appreciate it. Rashford hat-trick. I mean, if he plays. I mean, if he plays and he's not 100% fit and he scores a hat-trick, performance of the season, mate. Performance of the season. I don't see it happening, but it would be performance of the season if he did it. Box reckons we'll draw to Chelsea. Yeah. I mean, as I said, I think we'll beat Chelsea. I know recent history suggests that a draw is written all over that game, but I just feel like if we beat Wolves, our confidence levels will rise again. I think it's a big game for us. It's our game in hand, and hopefully if we actually pull our finger out, the Chelsea game should be our ultimate final for this season, where we've beaten Bournemouth, we've beaten Wolves, and that is the game where we secure top 4. That is what I'm hoping. But do I see it, especially with the way we've been playing? I'm not fully behind that idea. I do think we're going to drop points again this season. Hopefully it's on the final day, once we've won 3 out of 3. But yeah, we'll see what happens, guys. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to give you my predicted lineup. Let me know what your thoughts on this predicted lineup. I've gone with De Gea in goal. Shaw, Varane, Lindelof and Wan-Bissaka. I've gone with Varane just because I thought it would be an interesting selection to put him in, to be honest. But I also feel like, Ten Hag knows how important Varane is, and he knows that we've been struggling, without our first choice centre-backs. And I think, Varane coming back in is just that experienced head, especially when you've got Liverpool breathing down your necks and it's the business end of the season. You need your winners to step up, the Varanes, the Casemiros. You need these guys to step up. So hopefully Varane can help us with that, and I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in. Obviously Wan-Bissaka starting on that right-hand side. Casemiro, Eriksen, Fernandes. And actually, it was a kind of a shame, the West Ham game, because I think that was the first time that we've lost a game when all three of Casemiro, Eriksen and Bruno have started together. Hopefully that gets repaired in this game tomorrow. And then I've gone with Anthony, Sancho and Martial as the front three. Anthony Martial's got to pull his finger out, man. Honestly, I'm waiting for him to come good. I'm waiting for him to do bits this season. And if he can catch fire in these last 4 games of the season and get us over the line, I think a lot of United fans, even though they probably would still want to move him on this summer, I think it would be a huge, huge boost for him, and potentially a huge boost in terms of the money we could get for him if he can prove his worth. But right now, I just feel like, Martial, A, he's injury prone, and B, when he is playing, he's just same old, same old. He doesn't look like he's really putting in enough effort. He just doesn't really look like he wants to be there at times, to be honest. But hopefully he proves me wrong. Hopefully he proves me wrong tomorrow and bags a couple of goals. Heck, bags a hat-trick. Who knows? Let me know your thoughts on the lineup and get your predictions in, everything like that. Box reckons he can see Lampard dining out on a draw at Old Trafford for years to come. Possibly gets another top-flight job on the back of it. Would that be the worst thing for the Premier League if Lampard got a job? I don't know. Maybe it's short-term pain for long-term gain. You never know. Matthew says, agree with that lineup. Suspect he'll start Malacia and Dallo, though. This is something that does annoy me a little bit, is that Malacia has been starting games, and for me, I think on form, I don't see Malacia as someone that has earned his place in the team recently. I mean, I'm not saying he's had a bad season. I don't think he's had an amazing season, but I don't think he's had a bad season either. But recently, his form has not been great. And I just don't see how, looking at recent games, he's really earned his place in the squad over, a Luke Shaw. But I guess Ten Hag doesn't want to play, two right-footed fullbacks. Although we obviously did it against Nottingham Forest, and whilst they are a little bit of a different beast to Wolves in that they're not as much of a beast, we did actually deal with the threat very, very comfortably in that Nottingham Forest game. So we'll see. Melody also says we've been saying the same thing about Martial 5 years. Just get rid of him already. I think this summer will be the one. I mean, I think Ten Hag. I don't think Ten Hag favours him. The fact that Weghorst is starting over him suggests that Martial hasn't got too long of a career left at Manchester United. Box says, I'd start Dalot as he should be a glorified winger at home versus Wolves. Save Wan-Bissaka for City. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I agree in terms of if we had won our last couple of games like we should have done, we wouldn't have to worry about top four. Top four would be in the bag, and I'd understand resting players, but we've put ourselves in a position where we just can't rest players, and it's really frustrating. It really is frustrating, but in all likelihood, we're going to be playing our full-strength side until the very last minute of that Fulham game on the last day, which is so frustrating because it shouldn't be in this situation. We should have got it wrapped up, but we haven't, and we have to kind of deal with it, unfortunately. Box says, on the basis of the attackers being generally poor of late, would gamble on playing Garnacho Palestri? Yeah, no, interesting shout, Garnacho, actually. Obviously, he's had a week of training and looks to be back potentially he was in the squad for the West Ham game, but he didn't get used in the end. Hopefully we see him in this game, but I do feel like Ten Hag is going to ease him back in. Hopefully we don't need to use him, if you know what I mean. Hopefully he's just someone that can come on and get minutes and maybe get himself a goal. But hopefully we've got the game won by then. But I would like to see Garnacho come back and see what he's got, because these last 4 games really could be a time for him to set a marker down on getting more first team minutes. If he performs in these last 4 games and gets over the line, his stock will rise. His stock's already very high, but his stock will rise even further. But I'm going to give you my score prediction for the game. If you're watching on the replay, thanks for watching. Leave your score predictions in the comment section down below. I'm going to go with a 2-0 win to Manchester United. I think we keep a clean sheet. I think recently we have been fairly solid defensively, even though, obviously we've lost our last couple. Actually, in those games, apart from the 1 goals we've conceded, we've actually been fairly solid. So, I'm backing us to get another clean sheet. 2-0. I think without Rashford, it's going to be a bit more difficult, but I think we just about get over the line, and it'll be an important win. 4 points clear of Liverpool. Obviously, we'll have played the same games, but they do have to play Leicester away on Monday night, which I'm telling you right now won't be the easiest of fixtures. Maybe it's a bit of copium, but I don't think it'll be the easiest of fixtures. Leicester will be absolutely gagging for 3 points in front of their home crowd. They need it. They are so, so desperate. Liverpool, of course, are desperate as well. But I just feel like Leicester at home, hopefully they can do the biz for us. And listen, I think Liverpool will probably win the game, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. I really don't. So we have hope. We have hope of Liverpool dropping points. But we have to focus on ourselves. We have to get the job done ourselves. We can't be worrying about other people. And Box says he would take 4 1-0 wins in these last 4 games. I think it sums it up pretty well. Every United fan right now snaps your hand off for that scenario. Vardy's last dance. I hope so, man. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed he can pull off one more virtuoso performance for us. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate everyone tuning in on your Friday evenings. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Leave your thoughts in the live chat. Comment section down below as well if you do want to leave any thoughts on anything I've said or the game or whatever you want to talk about. The takeover stuff as well. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.